Hello, and welcome to the 195th episode of Gaming Talk. Gacha games are kind of a big deal, especially in the mobile game market. Of course, several of these have hit PC and consoles as well, and it seems to me that there are several big names in the gacha space, but the ones that I hear about the most are, of course, Genshin Impact, Tower of Fantasy, and Wuthering Waves. I myself have played all three games. Now, this video idea came about one night when I was streaming Wuthering Waves for the first time. Someone asked me in the chat basically if I prefer Wuthering Waves or Genshin Impact. So I want to give my opinion here as to why my answer isn't so black and white. I think each of these games have their pros and cons. One thing that can't be ignored is that all of the games share a lot of elements. They are all anime action RPGs and gacha games to begin with. Each one lets your character climb pretty much any surface based on how much stamina you have. Each one lets you glide around in some form, whether that's an actual glider like Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves, or wings like you have in Tower of Fantasy. Each game is open world, and you have certain points to be able to unlock more of the map. An unfortunate similarity between all three is that the storytelling is very lackluster, no matter how much more of each of these games I've played. There are differences as well, like how in Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves you switch between characters, though Genshin is between 4, whereas Wuthering Waves rotates between 3. Tower Fantasy has you rotating between weapons of characters, and does that between 4 of them. This kind of ties into how Tower of Fantasy lets you actually customize how the player character looks with different outfits and accessories and ability to change the color of those as well. This is something that I wish that both Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves did, as the player character in both of those games have a single default look, and it kind of gets boring after a while. Especially Wuthering Waves, where it's just like shades of gray. Literally, her outfit is just dark gray, light gray, like blah. Even the male one is too. Now, the combat is generally action combat in each game, but I personally think that the combat feels the best in Wuthering Waves. This is helped not only by these sort of ultimate moves for each character, but also by the echo system and being able to temporarily transform into an equipped echo, which can greatly help in combat. Genshin Impact and Tower of Fantasy have those sort of ultimate abilities for each character, but they don't have anything like the echo system, which can combo really well with base attacks. But again, I personally just like how Wuthering Waves combat feels more than Genshin Impact and Tower of Fantasy. I honestly think that a big problem with all three games comes in the form of level scaling. I'm not all that far into Wuthering Waves, but I cleared my first Ascension trial not that long ago, from the time of writing this video anyway, and the level of all the enemies bumped up from like 20 to mid-low 40s. Now, it's not all that much of a problem because my best 3 characters and weapons are currently maxed out at 40, but this makes it, well, at the time this was perfectly balanced, so that encounters are not easy enough for you to bulldoze through, but they're not soul-crushingly difficult, though I did have to turn down my soul level from 4 to 3 because as I went on, enemy levels were nearing 60, even though my party is like level 40, and that's not fair. And especially makes it hard for farming bosses for character and weapon level up materials, but you can at least do that in Wuthering Wave and it be not overly complicated. Level scaling is what turned me away from Genshin Impact. I don't remember exactly where I was in the game since it's been a while, and even looking back at my last Genshin Impact video from about a month ago, I can't really tell where I was, and I don't have Genshin Impact currently installed. But I do remember things getting very difficult for me, and overly grindy nature of Genshin Impact didn't help that either. Even Tower of Fantasy has level scaling issues as well. They all do, because all 3 of those games want to make you do all this grinding for materials to level your characters and weapons. Yeah, the nature of the grind in all 3 games is bad, but I feel like this is something that most people know about with these kinds of games. I don't really like the way Wuthering Waves does it, especially because you only have so many wave plates to use towards rewards for things like tacit fields and boss encounters. And for some reason, you can't actually buy wave plates with microtransactions, which is surprising. It's good. I'm not going to do it anyway. But you basically have to wait several hours to replenish your wave plates or use other materials to replenish a certain amount of them, which I guess is both a good and a bad thing. The other two games do similar things, but they go the route of microtransactions, so you don't have to wait. These are really just some of the reasons why. If someone asks me which do I prefer, well, I don't have a set answer. Although I do think I would tell them I do not prefer Genshin Impact, but a large part of that is because the developers are horrible racists that only cater to their Chinese audience, since that is the majority of their player base. But I think that depending on the person, I could recommend both Tower of Fantasy or Wuthering Waves, and I'm currently still playing and enjoying Wuthering Waves and liking it pretty much, and I will continue to. But yeah, that's kind of my stance on the idea of, is there a preference between Genshin Impact, Tower of Fantasy, and Wuthering Waves? But that's all I have to say, so if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.